Hello and welcome. I'm Jennifer Shlomovich, and this is The Confident Vegan. On this channel, you'll find insightful interviews with inspiring vegans, practical tips for plant-based living, and empowering conversations about what it really means to live in alignment with your values. I am also the co-host of that vegan morning show with Kimberly Winters of the Did You Bring the Hummus podcast. You can start your day the vegan way and watch us live every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern on YouTube at That Vegan Morning Show. Today, my special guest is Anna Ferguson. Anna has been studying and teaching yoga, meditation, and mindfulness practices for over 20 years. She's the founder of the vegan-centric nonprofit Our Collective Heart and co-creator of World Peace Yoga, a school of yoga in Cincinnati, Ohio, offering online and in-studio classes. Anna is the director of Our Collective Heart self-paced online courses, Yoga for the Common Good, Relational Activist Training, and Compassion for All Yoga Teacher Training. On Anna's quest to inspire individuals to manifest the most authentic version of themselves, she wrote World Peace Yoga, Yoga for People Who Breathe. In her book, readers learn tools for creating inner peace through a variety of practices, including breathwork, meditation, and posture techniques, as well as plant-sourced living. Anna is passionate about building community, compassionate living, and her wonderful son, Noah. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me. It is wonderful to be here with you today.
It is wonderful to have you here today. We met through Kimberly, and you were a guest on that vegan morning show, I think earlier this year. I'm like losing track. 2026 is a blur already. I think it was like in January. And yeah, we had a great conversation there, and I'm really excited to have another conversation with you. You and I were talking about people pleasing, which is
Oh, yeah.
something that you and I have both worked through. And I feel like it's always an ongoing practice of or process of working through. And yeah, so I'm really excited to talk to you about that. But before we do, I always ask my vegan guests, what is your vegan story?
All right. So, my vegan story, well, I think my vegan story and my yoga story, they collide a little bit. And definitely I deepened my practice of veganism uh, through yoga. But you know, I was introduced to vegetarianism through a college roommate, and she was experimenting with the diet, and I was questioning the diet. But I also noticed some changes in her demeanor, and she she felt more calm presence, and I noticed that she was feeling healthier and had more energy. And I thought, well, even though I have these objections based on my upbringing that we have to eat animals for protein and animals are here for us to use, like all of these objections I had because that's what I was taught. Uh, just observing her, I thought, there might be something to this. So I decided to experiment a little bit and eliminated most flesh from my diet. Um, but I was not like completely vegetarian or vegan. I was just experimenting with lessening. And soon after that, this same friend invited me to a yoga class. It wasn't my very first experience with yoga, but it was my second experience with yoga, and it was really what got me started on my yoga journey was taking this class. And I remember going through the movements and doing these exercises, and I was super challenged and I felt awkward. And by the end, we laid down and did nothing for a few minutes. And I felt so calm and so relaxed. At the end of that, I thought, wow, I would like more of this in my life. And uh, I'd never experienced that with physical, I thought I was going to an exercise class in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so uh, to leave that class and actually feel restored um, and more calm was a different feeling than if you like went out for a run or, whatever exercise that you're doing. So I think that's what kept me going back to yoga over and over again. And I found myself through the practice of yoga that I felt so good after this deep relaxation that when the activities I did after, whether it was eating, anything I was consuming, whether it was media, music, food, that I wanted to keep my energy high. So certain things just started to fall away.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that I wasn't really eating dairy so much. I wasn't eating eggs so much. I wasn't eating meat. I was pretty much a pure vegetarian diet, but it wasn't like this, I'm going to be a vegetarian or I'm going to be a vegan. It's just those things just started to fall away because it was just intuitively like this is what feels good. Like I want to eat
Mm-hmm.
colorful foods and I want to keep this vibration high that I want to keep feeling good. So I guess about 6 months into my yoga journey, something like that, I had a teacher that came to Cincinnati and did a workshop. His name is Doug Swenson. And he was the first teacher that I had that really talked about yoga in relationship to food and ahimsa, which means nonviolence, and veganism. And that's where everything kind of solidified for me. That's when I learned about the environmental impacts of eating um, the positive environmental impacts of eating a plant-based diet, and then also how devastating it is when we consume animal-based products, as well as the harm involved, and on and on and on. So
Mm-hmm.
it was that really was like, okay, this isn't just a diet I'm experimenting with. This is a lifestyle that I want to live. Um, so I'm really grateful that I had the experience of finding a vegan yogi because I will say, I mean, they're out there. There are lots of vegan yogis out there for sure. But in the pool of all the yoga that's out there now, with millions of practitioners and so many people doing teacher training and so many teachers, relatively speaking, it's a small amount of vegan yogis compared to the mass amount of teachers and practitioners. That wasn't necessarily the case in the 60s. There were less people practicing yoga, but more people practicing yoga as a lifestyle, not just for the gymnastics and the exercise. So I feel very fortunate that I found a vegan yogi that inspired me to really make this a lifestyle and bring it into everything, my thoughts, my words, my actions, and it's a practice. um, we all do our best to live a kind life, and we make mistakes sometimes, and then we just keep moving on and keep trying to evolve and do better. And I know that there's more that I can do to evolve and do better. But yeah, I feel really grateful that I had that experience of connecting with someone that was talking about these things, because a lot of people, especially in yoga, they don't want to talk about food or it's almost as if talking about food is just as taboo as talking about politics, even though I mean, food is political, and it's part of living a life. And so, I think that all of these things are important to be part of a conversation in a yoga class, because it's not just moving around and doing gymnastics, it's how we live our life and how our life impacts others. And so that is a very political thing, and it's important to treat it as such, and look at yoga from the bigger perspective. And for me, the vegan lifestyle and living, like, that's like step one. That's to be compassionate to others. um
Hmm.
and then there's so much more evolving we can do from there. But this is like a teeny tiny, like, being vegan is like a teeny tiny small thing that we can do every day without a doubt to make a difference. And there's
Hmm.
like so much more and more and more, but this is like a starting point. It's like this is like the bare minimum starting point for creating a body out of peace, so that I can emanate peace and be more peaceful with people I communicate with and in my surroundings. And yeah, so I'm going on, but yeah, that's a little bit about my vegan journey.
Thank you for sharing that. And first of all, the world would be a much better place right now if we all practiced yoga and were vegans, because there would be so much care and thoughtfulness. And it surprises me how in yoga and also other spirituality circles that people aren't also vegan. Like you do have vegans who are in these communities, but there's a lot of people who aren't vegan. And I feel like it just surprises me because I became more spiritual. Well, let me circle back to connect how this is all going to connect with it with my vegan story. And that it started off for dairy for me for because of skin issues I was having. And I did this little 30-day experiment. And when I gave up dairy for 30 days, I felt, well, even less than 30 days. I would say within that first week, my skin started feeling better, my sinuses started to get better. And I just felt this overall sense of well-being that I hadn't experienced before. And I was looking up dairy-free recipes and a lot of vegan recipes popped up. And like you were mentioning before, very colorful, right? And I'm like, this food looks better than the stuff I make. And it just opened up this whole world for me. And forks over knives came up and whole food plant-based and all the different aspects of plant-based living were showing up in my explorations. And so it started off for the health reasons. And then I watched one documentary, Vegucated, that covered all the aspects of it. And that's when it really activated something in my heart where I was like, I really want to be vegan. But like, how can I go vegan? My family's not going to want to go vegan. And it really put it was this like misaligned. I realized I was just in this weird place, right? You were talking about before how we're raised, right? I grew up eating meat and eating all animal products, and that's just acceptable in society. And it was no longer acceptable for me, but I was in that weird space of how can I make that change? And eventually I kind of just went on my path of just eventually things were falling away on their own, like you were saying. And I was focusing on myself and doing as much as I could to incorporate vegan food into my day to day. And little by little, I was consuming less of it. And then it got to a point after a couple of years, it felt like my soul was screaming at me to go vegan. And I did in April of 2017. But before that, a few months before that, I had tried to go vegan and I did it for a couple months. And then I went back to having fish because I was navigating some health stuff and the doctor told me to have fish again. And after a couple months of being back on fish, I just could not, something in me was just shutting down for it. It was like, again, this gradual natural process of I just couldn't do it anymore. And so that's when in April 2017, I was able to finally fully commit and stay grounded in that and be in alignment with that. And what that opened up for me further was it deepened my intuition. I feel like, there's when you're consuming the energy of suffering, right? That's going to cloud our own energy as well. And so I feel like it's very important that when you're doing all these practices, especially yoga, right? Because it's about, like you were saying, ahimsa and non-suffering. It's so important to be able to practice that in all the ways. And I think, when it comes to food, people are very sensitive and protective of it because it's not an easy change, right? We have a lot of cultural memories and family memories and all kinds of associations with food that it can feel like a threat when that's going to get changed. So I think that's where it gets really difficult for people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the desire to fit in, for people,
Hmm.
I think is really um, everyone wants to feel accepted, and uh, it's not easy to navigate the world when sometimes you stand out. But I found that I'm more at peace with not fitting in than I have been than maybe I was as a child, even pre-vegan. It was definitely a thing for me to not feel, just always feeling a little bit awkward, and wanting to uh, feel like I fit in somewhere, whether it was with my family or with my peers. And then of course adding, in my 20s becoming vegan, that just added another layer to it. And it felt sometimes sometimes it felt very liberating and amazing when I was like in my truth and power and authenticity. And other times, uh, it felt very isolating when my family or friends, it didn't feel like they accepted me for this choice I was making. And so I think that for me, the most important thing is to accept myself and accept who I am. And you know, it's a journey to get there for sure. Um, but the more that we can just accept ourselves and love ourselves, I think it makes the vegan journey um, easier. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And you said something that really jumped out at me, feeling more at peace, being more at peace with not fitting in. And I as someone who was a people pleaser for a good portion of my life, I didn't start breaking out of that until about 16 years ago. So I'm a very different person now than I was then or before then. But when I never felt like I belonged anywhere for various family situations and other social situations. And I used to feel a lot of shame and self-criticize myself all the time, a lot of doubt, and it impacted my worthiness. And when I finally embraced not fitting in and actually allowed my true self to evolve, especially being a people pleaser for so long, I didn't I didn't know who I was without trying to be who everyone expected me to be. So there is this strange place after a while where I was like, okay, this is no longer working for me. I'm no longer fitting in. I'm no longer going to tolerate various things. But who am I now? And so it's been an interesting journey. Like I in the beginning of me ending my people pleasing, I went through a divorce and a lot of healing work after that. And that marriage only survived because I was a people pleaser. And when I started working on that part of myself, I could no longer continue there. And then I got remarried. And my, uh, and during that time, even though I had a sense of who I was when I met my now husband, there's been times I've gone through an evolution still, right? Because during that time, I didn't know who I was, even though I thought I did. I didn't realize I was going to be vegan. During the time since we've been married, I became vegan and I've done other changes. And he still stuck around, so that's great. Uh, but but that's something that it can be a bit ungrounding when you're no longer who you were told you should be, and you're stepping into that space of alignment, but you're also feeling unaligned because you're still grappling with this new operating system. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, well, you can tell me if I'm understanding what you're saying, but there's there's discomfort in stepping into your true self because you're so used to being this other entity. And so it's uncomfortable, but it's also can be very liberating.
Yeah.
And when you are a people pleaser and your whole life around revolves around making other people happy at the expense of your own happiness or at the expense of your own values and your own authenticity, you know, like the happiness that we think we're creating for others is just also temporary because we ultimately can't make anyone happy. They have to
Hmm.
make themselves happy. So if we're living in this illusion that we can make someone else happy and acting in that way at the sacrifice of our authentic self, then it really doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't serve us as an individual and it doesn't serve the people around us either.
No.
So I think I think we justify pleasing others because we think, oh, this is going to make them happy. And we want to feel validated, we want to feel accepted, we want to feel all the things, but that validation and that acceptance is like so fleeting, like it's for a moment. And then
Yeah.
and then we have to like keep doing it again and again and again for every moment and every moment. And it's going to deplete you if you keep living in that way. But I think about it as the in a lot of ways like the yoga poses. They're
Hmm.
uncomfortable. Like when you first take a class, like a yoga class that's focused on the poses and asana, and you're asked to take your shoes off, and like you're going to an exercise class, and you're like all of a sudden revealing your feet to like all these people in this room. It's like, oh, this is uncomfortable. And then like you're putting your hands on the ground and sticking your butt up in the air, and like they're like, oh, this is really uncomfortable. Like this is super awkward. And then you're moving through all these positions that are either require strength or flexibility, which you may or may not have. And so it's like, but it's designed in a lot of ways to allow you to practice being uncomfortable and being at peace in that discomfort. And so, can you like find your calm and find your peace and find your breath in the midst of moving from form to form and put yourself in that uncomfortable position and feel at peace with that? And so, yeah, like when it comes to like, if my initial go to is always like, oh, I'll just, even if it's something simple like, people are like, what do we want to do for dinner? And you just go with whatever other people say and don't share your opinion. This is like a basic example. Like that
Hmm.
first time you say, oh, I'd like to go to this place, and you speak up, it might feel uncomfortable and it might feel awkward and it might feel like, ugh. But that's, it's important to do those things and to speak up and share. And of course, that's like a very simple example, but it can go much deeper, depending on what type of people pleaser you are. And but uh, so it is a practice and it is uncomfortable at first, but then the more you do it and the more you speak up for yourself, the more you live your values, you feel more at peace. Just like the more you practice the poses, it becomes less uncomfortable, less awkward, and you feel more at peace through the different forms, through your breath. So yeah.
As you were talking and sharing that, and I loved how you eloquently added to what I had said, because yeah, you nailed it right there. I just, you shared that dinner example, which I could totally relate to because I have been guilty of that so many times. Oh, I can do anything. As a vegan, I've had to now have a little bit more of a say in where I go if I'm meeting up with non-vegan people, which is the majority of the time. Um, so, but there's this like feeling like I can't take up space. And I feel like I received a lot of praise growing up as, being the agreeable one, being the easy one, right? Not giving anyone anything not being challenging to what everyone else wanted. And yeah, there was this like feeling like I can't take up space. Who am I to make a choice and choosing a dinner option, right? And I think being going vegan definitely took that people pleasing to the next level, or eliminating that type of behavior. And I consider myself a recovering people pleaser. Like, as much as you do less of it, it's so ingrained in who you are, and it can feel challenging. And I have done yoga classes on and off, and they do feel awkward, but at the end of them I always feel so good. And I wish I invested more time in doing it. As I'm talking to you, I'm realizing I think I need to because it is very, very grounding. So I wanted to ask you, do you mind sharing a little bit more about your experiences as a people pleaser and what practices have helped you step into more alignment and being more confident?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I think that for me, people pleasing kind of started as a child,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, like seeking validation and acceptance from parents. And I think all children do that to
Yeah.
some degree. Like you want to feel like, especially when you're really young, like you want to feel like you did a good job, or whatever it was. and
Yeah.
and and then I feel like it started to filter over to, as I got older, into my peer groups, like wanting to fit in and wanting to do or say the right thing or whatever it may be. And I definitely had a small group of, not even group, I had one or two friends that I felt like I could be myself with. I didn't really have a whole lot of friends, I would say, growing up, because I feel like a true friend is like someone that accepts you for who you are and all your awkwardness and faults and whatever. And I think that can be hard to come by, like especially as you get into your teenage years. And
Yeah.
uh it's rough out there. It's rough out there for kids. It's rough out there for kids now, and it was rough when I was a kid. And of course, it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that more and more children are learning tools to cope, and we're talking about these things more at a younger age, which maybe we didn't so much in the past. But uh, how my people pleasing, I notice how it impacts me now is usually and how I know that I'm like, yeah, it's a practice. Like you said, I don't know if I've ever fully recovered from it. I mean, certainly working on it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
When it creeps up for me, I notice that it's usually in feeling guilt
Mm.
for something that I shouldn't feel guilty about. Like, I think that when we know we've done or said something that we wish we could take back. We kind of get that feeling in our gut, like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have said that or whatever. Like, there is like a healthy sense of guilt. It's never good to hold on to guilt, but
Hmm.
um, but I think that we're all human. We all make mistakes, and there's things that are like, oh, I might have said that differently, or I might have done that differently. So there is that guilt, but that's not my people pleasing guilt. My people pleasing guilt is when um like, let's say I'm feeling terribly sick and I have like a tea date scheduled with a friend, or even like a work meeting or whatever it may be, and I cancel it because I'm having a hard time lifting my head, let's say, and my nose is running and I'm, whatever it
Hmm.
may be. Like, I have all the valid reasons for canceling that, whatever it is. And I will feel guilty. And it's like, wait a second, I'm feeling guilty for taking care of myself. So I have to
Hmm.
watch um, when that creeps up, or even just someone, uh, there might be, uh, uh, I don't know. I'm trying to think of other examples, but like I can just think of like emails that I'll get sometimes from people, and like, oh, I came to class, but the door was locked and I couldn't get in, and they're all angry and upset, and I feel like really guilty that they came to the studio, they couldn't get in, and
Hmm.
granted, the teacher was there and the teacher was teaching, but they were new to the studio, and the door, sometimes the latch, like, you just don't push hard enough, and like that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
and so, like, something like that, where I'll feel guilty about that, and I'm like, wait, why am I feeling guilty about this? I don't, this is not something to feel guilty about. But those are the times where it creeps in for me, where like I want someone to have a good experience. They make an effort to get to our studio and take a class, and they can't get in. But that's out of my control, and there's no reason for me to feel guilty. I mean, yeah, I can work on fixing the door, which I have many times. The old door needs a lot of work, um, but like, those kinds of things where uh, that's where it creeps up for me now, and where it becomes a practice. Like, and for me, it's the awareness that I'm doing it, where before I feel like I would feel guilty, but I would never acknowledge it as like I'm feeling guilty. It was just this feeling I had, and I didn't do anything with it, where now I notice that it's arising, and I can kind of have these conversations with myself, like, there's no reason for you to feel guilty right now. And sometimes it's just
Hmm.
taking a few breaths and just letting it go. In some cases it's easier than others, but yeah.
I love that you shared that example because I heard on a podcast a long time ago, and I have sometimes shared this with in other episodes on this channel or just other conversations I've had with people on this topic is, yeah, there's a way to delineate between the two types of guilt, right? So when you do something, or like when you say no, for example, for something you don't want to do, and you're feeling guilty for that, you can ask yourself, am I doing something immoral? Or am I feeling guilty because I'm afraid of how the other person's going to feel about it, right? And that's kind of like the same thing as what you were sharing, right? There's those two types of guilt. And when we have that awareness and we can pause and we can check in with ourselves and be like, hey, you know, is it, am I doing something so terrible? I'm not feeling well. I need to take care of myself. Is that a terrible thing? Will people be disappointed? Sure. All right. Example with the door, right? It could be frustrating, but it's a human thing right? And we all have to give ourselves space to be human beings. And and I think most people are generally understanding. Uh, and then there are people who aren't. And but we're not responsible for managing the feelings of other people. I think that was a big thing I've had to like learn in my life. Um, is it's okay to allow somebody to have their feelings, and it's okay for me to have my feelings and set those boundaries where where needed. And I think definitely, when I've done meditation and yoga, it's definitely helped me in my process of working through that inner landscape. And so can you share a little bit more about that, like some of the practices that have helped you on your work?
Yeah, I think that stillness and pause is
Mm.
essential. I think that that's really, even though at the time I didn't realize it, but being new to yoga, um, obviously the relaxation at the end impacted me, but I didn't realize until later on in my yoga journey that that was really what kept me coming back to the practice over and over again. Because how often in life do people take a pause and
Yeah.
find stillness and rest? And oftentimes, when you take that pause, that intentional pause, uh, the mind is very loud. And so, all the things that you're pushing away during the day by staying busy and being on devices and working and doing laundry and doing and doing and doing and doing, cooking, everything, like all the stuff, when you pause, all of a sudden you can hear all your thoughts. And a lot of times people say, "Oh, I can't meditate because, my mind just goes all over the place." And it's like, well, that's kind of the point a little bit, like to observe your thoughts. Those
Hmm.
thoughts that are happening in the background all day long, but that are impacting you, but you're not paying attention to them. And so it's like until I really got deeper into my meditation and my yoga practice, I didn't realize that most of the time, most of the day, I was just feeling guilty. Like,
Yeah.
and so now I'm quiet, I'm still, and I can really start to notice the feelings arise and identify them in my body. And just from an observer perspective, like, oh, that's interesting. That thought is interesting. I wonder why I'm thinking that. Like, and so the idea is that the more you sit and the more you are still, like the thoughts start to uh, get less and less and less. They begin to dissipate. You're not you may not completely empty your mind, um,
Yeah.
but you can just watch the thoughts come, just like a cloud in the sky, and then watch them float away versus holding on to those thoughts and analyzing them and whatever you do go like we create so many things in our mind. uh,
Yes.
and so meditation is like just observe the thought and just kind for me it's like, oh, that's interesting, let it pass on. And I think that so stillness, whether it's lying down or seated, um, or even slow walking, where you're not doing anything else, you're not listening to anything, you're just moving slowly. I think anytime that you slow down, that you can start to notice how you're feeling. And this is why I think it often happens that uh, people get sick on vacation.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
like because I think it's a pretty common thing. Oh yeah, I went on vacation and got sick, blah, 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 or whatever. Like because your body can only push so much, and it's
Hmm.
trying to help you get through and get through and get through, and you're not going to get sick, and you're not going to get sick, and you're going to push through. Then you plan a trip, plan a vacation, you get there, you unpack, you finally relax, and then your body's like, okay, now here it is. Like it's going to unleash the sickness on you because you never took any time to slow down, and you're just constantly in that fight or flight, and then as a result, like your body can only push so much, and then you get sick. And that I maybe that's not the case for everyone on vacation, but I think it does happen to people quite a bit that, oh, they finally take a pause and then they get sick. And But I think it's really important that to incorporate that stillness and incorporate that pause every day. And it's going to boost your immune system. It's going to make you more aware of your feelings. And it's not to shove the feelings away. It's to become aware that they're even happening so you can notice them and so you can let them go. Like, oh,
Hmm.
that's interesting. Let the guilt arise. Let the anger arise. Let the frustration arise, and don't suppress it. Let it bubble up to the surface, feel the feeling, and then let it move on from it.
I'm so glad you shared that example. That's something that I have done over the course of my healing journey. And I used to getting comfortable allowing myself to feel those intense, suppressed feelings and emotions. And one of the things that's helped me is like I'll pause for a moment and I'll be like, okay, I feel this. I feel angry at somebody. Why do I feel this way? Or if I'm triggered about something, right? Why am I being triggered about this? And then my brain, if you ask your brain a question, it'll give you an answer a lot of the time. And it's and a lot of times I get answers that I wasn't expecting to get, right? Like, I'm very big in having a journaling practice. Sometimes I don't journal, but especially if I'm going through a tough time, I will lean on journaling because it allows me to explore that. And yeah, it's like, well, why do I feel that way? And then I validate myself, right? Jen, you feel this way because of XYZ reason, and it's okay to feel this way. And when we allow ourselves to feel things, it allows us to respond instead of react. And those are also like two different things to delineate between, right? There's reacting to things and then there's responding to things. And when you're reacting to things, you're doing it from that triggered emotional place. And when you're responding to things, you're able to do things from a more grounded place. And you're not letting all those intense emotions come out through your communication.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll also add, in addition to the stillness and meditation, I do think breath work is really powerful. Deep breathing can calm the nervous system. And when I feel totally out of whack, dysregulated, and I'm having a hard time calming down, thoughts are jumping all over the place, my go to is to lay down and put my legs up the wall. And so, if you're familiar with
Mm,
yoga, legs up the wall pose, it is super calming to the nervous
mm,
system. And you can do it in bed even. So if you're lying down at the end of the day and your mind is racing, you're going through your to-do list, you're having a hard time sleeping, that is like my absolute go-to. Is I just flip around, put my legs up the wall, or if you have a headboard, you can put your legs up the headboard. Sacrum, shoulders, head lie flat, and legs are up, and it's an easy go to for calming the body, especially if you're having a difficult time just lying down or just sitting up and being still. That can be really calming for the nervous system.
that's a really great tip. Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to give that a try. And it's so easy, right? Sometimes things can just be easy. Something that helps me, sometimes I'll lay down in bed and I'll just listen to some music for 15 minutes, or I'll go for a walk outside and listen to some type of music that like uplifts me. And that can be grounding too. So there's always little things that we can do. And I really love that tip that you shared because that's something that I'd like to try another time when I'm feeling dysregulated. And it sounds pretty easy to do. Before we wrap up, I wanted to you did write a book, World Peace Yoga, Yoga for People Who Breathe. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a yoga book that incorporates many aspects of yoga beyond the poses. So there's breath work, meditation, philosophy, and it's definitely written in a vegan-centric way, compassion for all beings, and connecting yoga philosophy um, to non-harming and ahimsa and how to live a more compassionate life. So it's definitely a great yoga book for fellow vegans that are looking to study and practice yoga with someone that shares their values. Uh,
Hmm.
and there are different practices that, you don't have to do the poses. You could just do breath work. You could do a seated meditation. You could do a lying down meditation. That you can eat mindfully. Like there's so many different practices that are yoga practice that you might bring into your life. So that it's a holistic approach to yoga.
I love that, and I'm looking forward to checking that out because I need to incorporate more grounding practices in my day to day. Yeah, it sounds really great. Anna, I've really enjoyed chatting with you today. Um, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, I'll share that I do have free meditations on Insight Timer, which are
Mm.
really great. And it's an app and it's a free app. And you can practice. You can find me on there and practice some of my guided meditations. I have some great ones for rest and shorter ones for those that are busy. And I have a meditation for busy people. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, which is great. So Insight Timer is an app where you can find my meditations, and then I'm teaching at World Peace Yoga online and in studio, so you can join from anywhere. And then the nonprofit that I created is Our Collective Heart, and that's where I offer the Compassion for All yoga teacher training. And so that is a 200-hour course that is a completely online course, and it's vegan-centric values, and it's designed for people that, again, want to go deeper into their yoga practice or maybe even teach and learn from those that are practicing a vegan, ahimsa, nonviolent, compassionate lifestyle. Yeah.
I love all that. Sounds great. All very important things, especially in the crazy world that we're navigating right now. We need more of these things.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Um, and I don't post a whole lot, but I'm on there. And I just posted a meditation on my Instagram today.
Oh,
Meditation
great.
Rest. It recently came out on Insight Timer.
Great. Well, I will also include all of your links in the notes below so everyone watching can find them really easily. Well, Anna, thanks again for hanging out with me and having this great conversation. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you real soon. Bye for now.